Hi, Elections Day is approaching. For 2 weeks we've been publishing investigations every day. Over the past months, we have published 15 stories telling you about crooks of all sorts, from Moscow and other regions. We'd like to end this insane marathon with the same topic and theme as when we started it. Natalia Sergunina, the person who started all the lawlessness in Moscow this summer. Moscow's head manager, the official who decided not to allow a single independent candidate to the elections, and sanctioned unprecedented political repressions without any rhyme or reason. Just as important is the fact that over months after our first investigation about her billions, Sergunina still hasn't found the time to answer our accusations. Well, it's a disgusting approach, but still an approach. We won't put up with it, that's why. We'll tell you how Sergunina's family stole another billion rubles. That's a great story, you'll love it. We'd also like to tell Sergunina herself that she won't be able to keep mum this time. Let us pause for a minute to remind you what the previous episode was about, and who its main characters were. Her entire life, Sergunina has been responsible for the city property of Moscow, and she's been stealing it. They came up with a cunning scheme that we managed to uncover. Her sister's husband changed his name from Ozar to Aharon Aronov and registered offshore companies using his new identified documents. Then, through a chain of companies, his Russian company purchased tens of thousands of square meters of historical buildings in Moscow for next to nothing. All of them were sold by Sergunina's orders for lowball prices. Houses have been set up in the purchased buildings, and Sergunina's sisters used the profit to buy a mansion in Vienna and open a business there. Our first investigation featured an offshore company owned by Sergunina's brother-in-law, Kendi. Through it, Sergunina's family owns 40% of Oktyabrsky Cinema. The same company has now led us to a new discovery. It's much bigger than what we talked about before. Aviapark. It's owned by a Cypriot company, Kosman Limited, which in turn is owned by two offshore companies. One of these is Sergunina's Kendi. It owns 33% of its shares. The remaining 66 are owned by a BVI-based company whose owner we currently don't know. This is the current ownership scheme though, but until June 2014, Aviapark was controlled by the Moscow City Property Department. Let's stop looking at the boring and soulless screenshots of registry entries and start studying what Lazar stole this time and what this has to do with Sergunina. In 1996, Moscow Mayor Yuri Lyshkov launched a colossal project on Khodynka field, where Moscow's first art field used to be. It was decided to build a literal garden city. Just look at this project. They wanted to turn an abandoned field into a refined landscape park and build a beautiful museum of aviation and cosmonautics, a school, housing and exhibition center on what used to be a sandlot. They decided to build it under an investment agreement. A business company owned of course by Lushkov's wife was supposed to build all that, and then transfer a part of it to the city and of course fulfill the so-called social obligations by building public spaces, parks and a school there. I have to interrupt you here to stress out the irony of all this. There used to be one mayor who gave contracts to his wife. The mayor changed it, but the situation didn't. They still give the contracts to their people, but these people are now different. That's right, look what happened next. Lushko left, Sobyanin replaced him as Moscow mayor. Sergunina became responsible for the Khodynka field project. Here's the act. This last part lists Sergunina as a responsible party. The official project owner is the Aviapark company, subsidiary of the City Property Department. Reports list the strategic goal of a park as constructing a museum in a park. The project's estimated value was huge. Just the city's share, according to financial reports, was 4.3 billion rubles. But then, a miracle we were already familiar with happened. The city decided to get rid of its asset entirely. Through several intermediaries, Aviapark was transferred to a Cypriot offshore company, a third of which in turn is owned by Lazar company, the brother-in-law of the official who oversees this project on behalf of the mayor's office. 4 billion rubles of the city's money, our money, was transferred to a Cypriot offshore company, and 33% of this 4 billion, so almost 1.5 billion, went directly to the family of Sobyanin's deputy. This is a huge amount of money, and there is no official explanation why the city suddenly decided to get rid of its share of profits from the development of Khodynka. That's not the worst part though. There is a popular viewpoint that goes like, So what did they steal? They've always been stealing. But at least Moscow is so beautiful now. Lots of cool places have been built. Not this time. Nothing of what you see in these pictures has been built. Outrageously nothing. Let's have a look. I'm standing at the location of the Aviation and Cosmonautics Museum. There was supposed to be a beautiful huge tower here that would look like a rocket. Planes and rockets were supposed to stand there, and there was supposed to be a museum with exhibitions, glass pavilions, and gardens. But what do I see? A concrete lot behind a colossal shopping mall called the Aviapark. You can find all kinds of shops here, but there is no museum. And where am I now? I'm at a place where, according to the investment agreement, a school for 550 pupils was supposed to be built. I look around but fail to see this school. Where is it? And here they were supposed to build a hotel and residential complex with a public space. But what do we see? A huge apartment block, its twin was built on the other side of the mall. To sum up, a huge and ugly shopping mall was built instead of the garden city. With two apartment blocks next to it. Oh well, we're not talking about aesthetics here. We need to get back to the investment contract we talked about before. Let me remind you of its terms. The developer builds the residential buildings for sale, but transfers 30% of them to the city. The city also gets the school and the museum. Instead of the school, there is a sand lot. Instead of the museum and exhibition complex, a concrete lot. But 30% of the apartments were really transferred to the same Aviapark company, since they never changed this part of the contract. The problem is that Aviapark is now owned by the city, but by offshore companies, one of which is the family company of Sobyanin's Natalia Sergunina. All these 93,000 square meters land are being rented by Aviapark until 2046. They rent it out, sell apartments and construct buildings, and get their guaranteed 150 or 200 million a year. What about the unbuilt museum and school? Sergunina will handle that at the mayor's office. She'll sign up an amendment or something, and there'll be no more questions. And that's how corruption transcended through decades. Instead of the Crook who gave half of construction contracts in Moscow to his wife Khodynka, we now have Sobyanin, our European mayor and city invader. The only thing that's changed is that they have gotten better at hiding their relatives and their offshore companies. Moscow should be governed by honest, competent people. But they will never appear if we keep sitting in our couches. Sobyanin, Putin and Sergunina simply won't let them. Just like they didn't let independent candidates join the elections. But we still have no right to voluntarily surrender Moscow City Duma, St. Petersburg's municipalities or any other government body to them. We must show them that they won't be able to drag their candidates through. That's why you need to come to the elections on September 8 and participate in this smart voting.